Chapter 10, Example 1. A friend of yours, the most indecisive person you have ever met, has decided to flip a coin to make decision making easier. She's decided heads means yes and tails means no. Since employing this method, your friend has only said yes once in the last 5 times you've asked her to hang out. You suspect the coin she is using is not a fair coin. How can you test your theory? So the question is, how can we test this without actually flipping a coin? We're going to use a simulation for this. First thing we want to do is identify what a component is. Then we can state a trial, the response variable, and our statistic. And we'll look at how we can use random digit tables to run simulations. A component would be one flip of the coin. We can simulate this using single-digit numbers 0 through 9 from a random digit table. 0 through 4 can represent heads, while 5 through 9 would represent tails. A trial would consist of 5 flips of a coin. So I will look at a sequence of 5 random digits from the table. The response variable is the number of times heads occurred out of 5 attempts. Our statistic is the proportion of trials that resulted in flipping heads only once. So how are we going to run this? We'll look at a random digit table. I have an example here. We have 5 rows, the first row 101, and then I have a series of randomly generated digits that are in just blocks of 5. It doesn't mean anything other than just a way to make it easier to read. So we're going to look at a block of 5 single-digit numbers, and we're going to label any numbers 0 through 4 as heads, and 5 through 9 as tails. So we'll mark H under any number 0 through 4, and we'll mark a T under any number 5 through 9. Once we've done this, we'll count how many times we had heads out of the 5 trials. So my first number is 1, 9, 2, 2, 3, which means I will have heads, tails, heads, heads, heads. So that means we had 4 heads out of 5. So trial 1 would be 4 heads. I can move on to the next column or drop down the next row. I'm going to drop the next row just because it will be easier to read. So in row 102, I have 7, 3, 6, 7, 6, which means I'll get tails, heads, tails, tails, tails. So for trial 2, I have 1 head. Then we'll jump down to row 103, where I have 4, 5, 4, 6, 7, which gives me heads, tails, tails. So I had 2 heads out of 5s. So trial 3 is 2 heads. So out of my 3 trials, I had heads once, exactly 1 time. So out of 3 trials, it looks like I have a 33% chance of rolling heads. That's not that unusual. 1 out of 3 we'd expect to occur 1 out of 3 times. Ideally, I would run many more trials, maybe 50, 100, maybe even 1,000 trials to get a better proportion of how often I would expect to get heads only once.